Imagine cutting your costs in half. VTEX, the enterprise platform offering commerce, OMS, marketplace solutions, and much more, can help you reduce your total cost of ownership by at least 50%. Trusted by global leaders such as Carrefour, Walmart, Cencosud, VTEX is the go-to choice for both CIOs and CEOs who demand excellence. Discover how VTEX can elevate your business today. Visit vtex.com or click the QR code on your screen. Let's go to the episode. Today, we're exploring how technology and innovation are reshaping the home improvement industry with a leader who is driving this digital evolution. I'm excited to welcome Chris Blatchford. He's the group CTO at Kingfisher PLC, the parent company of some of Europe's most renowned home improvement brands, including B&Q, Screwfix, Castorama, and Brico Dépôt. Chris is leading Kingfisher's ambitious digital transformation strategy known as Powered by Kingfisher. Under his leadership, Kingfish has applying technology to enhance customer experience, expand innovative e-commerce platforms, and drive sustainability across their operations. In our discussion today, we will dive into Chris' insights on the intersection of technology, retail innovation, and the importance of diversity and inclusion in building high-performing teams. Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 65 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. Chris, it's such a pleasure to have you here. It's a beautiful day in London, and I'm happy that you're here to share everything about tech with us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So let's, not everybody that listens to the show is from the UK or is familiar with Kingfisher. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the company?
Sure, absolutely. Happy to be here and happy to do so. So Kingfisher PLC is a large multinational DIY retailer. This year we made just shy of £13 billion for anyone that's interested in financials. We have nearly 2,000 stores across Europe, across 8 jurisdictions. We run some really well-renowned brands. So B&Q in the UK, Screwfix. We have Screwfix in the UK and Ireland. And then in continental Europe, we have brands like Castorama and Brico Dépôt. We own a share in Koçtaş as well, the Turkish DIY retailer. So we're one of, if not the biggest DIY retailer in Europe. And we're making some pretty interesting headway, as we'll talk about later, into some interesting tech innovations.
I know, and you are the global CTO.
Correct, yes, CTO. So, CIO, CTO, C something, O. There's lots of different ways my job's been described over my time at Kingfisher. I started as a CIO.
Okay.
And I think, traditionally CIOs, I always think of as more programmatic, managing large outsource providers, managing large contracts, being really good in managing these big FTSE 100 organizations, sometimes technical, sometimes not. And then that evolved into more of a CTO role, which is more of my natural home, I would say. I'm an engineer and a technologist by trade. Priorities of the business changed over time. I think my role evolved, mutated.
How long has it been that you're in the company?
Just 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a good evolution, short evolution.
Yeah. We've done a lot in 3 years. I look back sometimes and think, wow, we've achieved so much as a business.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because it's you weren't in retail before, right?
No, I wasn't. So my first retail job, I was 18.
Right? You're like there in the front line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that was, this is pre-education, pre-knowing what I want to do with the world. I was pushing trolleys around a car park. It was for Sainsbury's, where I lived. And I worked the tills, I worked the stock rooms, I worked in a deli. I was making people's food as an 18-year-old at one point. That was scary. So that was the first time, and then nothing until recently, until 3 years ago, in between investment banking, blue chip organizations, news organizations, academic publishing most recently. So this was my first foray back into retail and, at massive scale.
Yeah, so I need to understand a little bit more about the scale of it, because we're talking about several brands and you're the global CTO, so you're on top of everything.
Yeah.
How is your job? I imagine that each company has a different maturity in technology? What is your role within all of them?
So fundamentally, if you like, if I dig out my job description that my boss has given me, I'm responsible for technology end to end. So that's in the banners. We call our businesses the banners. That's in the group, which is our group operations, which I can talk about shortly. But fundamentally, everything from infrastructure, clouds, the tin and hardware that we run things on, through to e-commerce front ends, data science teams, to end user compute, making sure our colleagues have the devices, the hardware, the services, the software to do their job. Thankfully, in the banners, we have some very capable and very excellent technical directors. So these individuals work in a matrix way. So we've got obviously the core technology organization, but we've got people in Screwfix, in B&Q, in Casto that run the day-to-day operations. And that model's been pretty fundamental to our evolution and our speed.
So you have separate tech teams for each brand?
We have a matrixed org. So the way we run it today is technology is with the group. So, if you think of in traditional reporting lines, technology reports into me. Those teams are then, in some cases, federated or dedicated to banners, or they're matrixed out to the tech directors. So, for example, engineering, that runs all up into my engineering director, Nick. And those engineers are, based out of UK, out of France, out of our engineering centers in Poland, in Romania. We're looking at opening a third as well. And those engineers work on projects for the businesses. And then the day-to-day is managed by the local tech directors.
Cool. And you've been very vocal about modernizing IT and infrastructure in these businesses.
Yes.
What does it mean for you? I'll begin with that.
Yeah. I think a lot of retailers, they have a very large legacy estate. And I think it's important to understand, or at least in my opinion, legacy doesn't mean bad. Just because you've got technology which is 10, 15, or 5, 10, 15, in some cases 20 years old, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not fit for purpose. I used to run overnight batch operations on AS400 systems in banks. They still run today. You'd be amazed at the type of technology that still runs a lot of operations for businesses. So the trick for us has been, how do we marry legacy tech with modern tech and then get the benefit of the modern tech for our customers? So an example would be, we've got a relatively old ERP system called ECC6, which is from SAP.
And how old is it?
So we started that implementation in 2015, and I think it had been on the market for quite some time at that point. It's out of support now. It's an amazing data warehouse. It's got really rich data that you can do lots of very interesting things, which I can talk about a bit in a minute when we talk about data science or data and some of the innovations we're driving. But we had to take that and figure out, right, well, how are we going to use this thing? We don't want to upgrade this system right now. There's no appetite for that, especially given where the retail industry is. How do we leverage this thing? So we took, modern Google. We have a great partnership with Google. And we talked to SAP about ECC6. We said, right, let's mash these things together. Let's take the power of the ECC6 warehouse, whack it into the Google cloud, all of the resilience and all of the benefits of doing so. And then we can start to extract the data for really interesting use cases. So there we're taking a very modern cloud native set of tools and services and connecting it with some legacy that produces some really interesting value-driving use cases. And that's the general approach we're trying to take. Some cases we have to, completely devolve and remove legacy because it's not fit for purpose. But wherever we can, it's how do we use it? A bit like a grade 2 listed house. You add extensions onto it, and you have to, how do you marry the modern world with the old world?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And there's a big discussion nowadays on ditching totally the legacy platforms and actually work with several vendors, smaller vendors that connect with each other. What is the right balance for that? Because it's pretty tough, right?
Yeah, it is. I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is I think it's circular. It changes. I've seen the circle of, we were talking very briefly earlier about monoliths versus microservices, or the push to Mac-based architecture. There's lots of grey areas between those two extremes. You can have an entire monolith, or you can have hundreds of microservices that you need to manage independently, which is also difficult to do. In between that, you've got modular monoliths, you've got hybrid models. I think for me, it comes down to what does the business, or what do we as a business want to differentiate on? Because so much of the technology stack now is commodity. So do we really want to differentiate on, if you take search indexing, how you build a search index? No, because that's commodity. Do we really want to differentiate on a mobile app framework? Maybe, but I'm not sure we'll get incremental benefits from that. So that stuff, I think the commodity stuff, once you've worked out what it is, that can be monolith, if you like, so it doesn't change that much. Mm-hmm. And it can also be vendor. The stuff that really differentiates you, algorithms that you're developing for recommendations or similar use cases, build in-house. The very best partners will allow you to do both. They'll provide you with the commodity stack at the back end, and then they'll allow you to customize it and develop your own sort of USP. And that's the perennial challenge. So when I say I don't know, I think it's constantly evolving. That mix changes all the time.
So it's not a one size fits all, or it's not one idea that will perpetuate for several years.
I don't believe so. I think the best defensibility an organization has against the pace of technological change, and also equally the pace of change the vendors are pushing. Vendors always are releasing new software models, versions. The best defense of that is modularity, there's no question. In my mind, always have two solutions for any one use case. So you can, mix and match and choose which one you want to over-index on or not. But don't go too far, because then you're having to manage multiple systems and there's costs associated
multiple
with
vendors,
that.
several APIs.
Yeah, or bring the vendors in together and get them to face off to each other, which is fun. So yeah, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I don't really believe in absolutes in that way, which is maybe odd coming from someone in engineering. Yeah,
a lot of conversations I've had, there's the debate of we need to build in-house what is pillar for the business. But it's kind of hard to determine what is pillar for the business, because kind of like everything can be, right? So do you have systems that you build in-house?
I think it comes back to the same question of, what really differentiates you? Because if you're building things in-house that are largely commodity, then it's sort of a waste, because that's already been built by a vendor, or it's an open source library, or it's just there available to utilize. But if you're spending your time building things that are commodity and therefore already in use by other businesses, i.e. your competitors, then you're not investing in the right place, in my mind. I think if you can build in-house and you can do it for a lower cost, a lower price point, you can do it more efficiently, then, okay, there might be an argument to doing so. But if I look at Kingfisher once again, we don't spend our time building there. We spend our time looking at things like Marketplace, where we've built one of Europe's leading, if not the leading, DIY marketplace with millions of products on the platform. Now there we have to try and think about how we manage the legacy to scale with the modern tech. We use commerce tools and Fluent for our modern front end as we evolve away from some monoliths. But at the same time, we've still got monoliths and legacy to manage with the integrations. So investing there for us is the right choice. Might be different for a different organization.
Got it. And you have some use cases for AI and data science that you just mentioned before. How are you leveraging that within the business?
Yeah, so we have a phenomenal data science team and data team. And actually the banners are really evolving and have evolved their thinking around data use cases, because I think thinking about data as a product is a bit of a mind shift in a way. So it's very easy for us to think about, a drill. or a pot of paint as a product. It's a product. I get it. I can touch it. I can feel it.
It's not so tangible when it's just data.
No,
right?
exactly, right?
You can see data like that.
It's sort of this, how do I think about, it's very easy for me to understand the value assigned to this physical product. So then if you evolve that to the right a bit, we then talk about digital products. So that could be a mobile app, or it could be a website. And you can sort of still feel it. Moving to the right again, how do I think about data? We've got all of this data. How do I think about data as a product? Where's the value in that? And so we've got teams dedicated to that thinking, and then the data science teams overlay their models and their thinking around, say personalization. So some of the use cases the team have driven internally, supply chain visibility. So this is aggregating all of the data from our partners internally, tracking stock from source all the way through to delivery, everything to the shipping containers in the Suez Canal, to the drivers in the UK or Europe. And that allows us to look at stock replenishment, stock fulfillment, and identify problems across this huge supply chain spanning halfway around the world. And the beauty of what the data science team does is they produce the algorithms to identify the anomalies and the issues, but it's not just surfacing those issues. The machine learning algos will actually suggest, well, this is what we think you should do. It's not just,
so
hey,
it's
no,
like a forecasting too.
Yeah, but it goes one step further from sort of predictive analytics to prescriptive. Not only have I found an interesting thing, this is what you should do about it. And so if you evolve that to the next step, you eventually get to a place where you've got this machine, running, which is just optimizing for you. You don't even have to get involved.
And push the order and do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the stock replenishment, fulfillment, refresh, eventually just becomes entirely automated. You still got to have a human in the loop. So
I was gonna say that's very agentic.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's a real world use case, I think, of how AI is this big term, right? But how AI is fundamentally changing how we operate and how we work. And so that's just one. We've got others like markdown and promo. So that's all about how we optimize pricing for maybe overstocking. And that's a direct benefit to the customer. So if we have a surplus of stock, we can optimize the pricing for that stock to shift the stock, but also provide the customer with a good deal.
But I believe that with your supply chain optimization, you've reduced your overstock, right, as well?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the mix, right? Yeah. So it's a great point, because SVT, supply chain visibility, is almost further upstream. Over time, that could probably impact the need or the demand for markdown and promo. So they're both sort of hedging each other. Then we've got other cooler things like, slightly different things like Lens. So Lens is a augmented reality app, or currently out on the Screwfix app. So that allows you to take your phone, put the camera on within the app, point it at a product, a washer or a screw or a drill, and it'll identify it for you. And then once it's identified it for you, it will, take you off to a link to go and maybe purchase it or go and look at the product data behind it. We have a large language model helper bot called Hello Casto. So that's think of it as a chat GPT for DIY for our Casto France. And we're going to roll that out or in the process of rolling that out to B&Q.
To help like if I want to buy something, this goes with it. This is
so it's just like if you'd use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you might use today, you can go there. I'm doing a kitchen project. I'm looking at this type of surface, like this type of granite. Can you help me identify, what the best integrations or the best resin for that? And it will give you, feedback. Obviously, recommending our products as part of that.
And marketplace products, right? Because you have a vast SKUs. Yeah,
exactly right. Marketplace, we've rolled out to multiple banners now. On B&Q, we've got over 1 million products from third-party vendors. Huge success. We're really happy with the pace. We've managed to do this very, very quickly.
And that's from your tenure, right? Like you identified that a marketplace was an opportunity. What did you see there?
When we think about a customer proposition, there's There's obviously quality and things like speed of delivery and flexibility to return products. But one of the key tenets of our strategy is breadth of choice. So we have fantastic own brands, as you can see from the jacket I'm wearing today.
Whoever is listening to us, I can't see it. He's wearing a beautiful jacket with all the brands.
Got all my brands.
Very good on brand, yeah.
Yeah, I've got my banners there. I've got the products on the back. So yeah, I mean, we have something called OEB, own exclusive brands, and they're super high quality, robust, reliable DIY products. And we have our first party products beyond that as well. But of course, we want to offer as much choice as possible. If you see customers how they operate today, they're shopping on social sites, they're shopping on TikTok, or they're shopping on Facebook Marketplace for Facebook or Facebook Marketplace. You still got eBay. There's multiple places to go and purchase.
The multi-channel.
Yeah,
like you can be.
Yeah, Amazon.
Customers don't go only to one place.
Exactly right. I mean, Amazon has a huge marketplace of third-party vendors. So, it's already happening. So it's like, well, we need to offer that same range of choice to our customers, so they can buy. If they can't get, whatever product is from us on P, we still want to be the destination of choice. So how do we make that happen?
So when you think about DIY or you think about home improvement, you want to be the first thought because there you 100%. Can find everything.
100%. Yeah. I think DIY is the traditional model that many of us, certainly I've grown up with. And we want to be the destination for that. But also there's a trend that's been in the market for some years now, which is DIFM, which is do it for me. And that's...
I'm an advocate for that.
Are you going to do it for me?
Don't do
I still have sometimes. Depends on electricals, definitely do it for me.
Okay, do it for me.
But it's interesting. That's almost a generational thing as well. We see sort of younger people more akin to DIFM, do it for me, as opposed to, me, older farts that are like, no, I'm going to give it a crack and I'll see how I get on. So we want to be the destination for both of those things and everything in between. Again, there's another trend called do it with me, which is more about how can I work with someone, or work with a tradesperson, or can I, do something with the help of B&Q. So there's a lot of different, but ultimately we want to be the destination. And then if you look at someone like Screwfix is more of your trade, your professional customer. So we tune the proposition. So yeah, Marketplace has been phenomenal. It comes with its own challenges.
I was going to say, what are those?
I think because you've suddenly grown the number of products that are available to a customer, if you search for, a new lamp for your home, if you've, moved into a new place, you'll get more results than you used to. So you've got more choice, but that could be a bit overwhelming.
So before I had only 10 options and now I have 150. Should I...
Exactly.
Which one should I get?
Exactly. And so, as we've evolved and grown the traffic and grown the products, we've had to focus back into search. We use Bloomreach as our underlying search capability right now. And so how do we optimize the search for the customer so they still get to the product they want based on their search query and their search criteria? And that you can do that through facets and checkboxes and search filtering and that sort of thing.
And that's another AI capability too.
It's another AI capability, absolutely. Yeah, it's another way we can optimize based on what we know of the customer, what we know of similar searches by other customers, nearest neighbor stuff. So yeah, it's the Marketplace has been a journey and it's still going.
Yeah. What is the next step for Marketplace?
I think we've got a few more banners to fully roll out. We're the last banner that we rolled out to was Castorama Poland. I think they're up to 40,000 products now. So next, really for Marketplace is to really optimize it, optimize the findability, optimize the product mix, introduce new features. There's something called like a buy box, which helps you promote certain products. You'll see if you go on Amazon, you'll see that. So there's lots of tweaks and feature enhancements we can make to hopefully improve the customer experience.
Talking about customer experience, you have Kingfisher, actually. There's a saying that is bringing greater speed and choice to customers. I guess this comes with the Marketplace idea.
Yeah.
But what are other tech capabilities that improved customer experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everything we do, And everyone in Kingfisher, we ask to think about the customer, everything they do. It doesn't matter what your job is, you have to think about how does this impact the customer. And so that could be something like, we have something called Vita, which is our virtual IT assistant. This is a tool that automates internal support calls. So if you want to reset your password, or you've got an issue with your Microsoft 365 account, we have internal support to manage that. The team has automated that and sped up these things. Like, you can now self-service. It sounds very droll, but speeding up your ability to get into your systems to do your work, to fulfill a use case which helps a customer, is a huge benefit. So someone that's very internally
Can you measure
focused,
that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've everything comes back to P&L and savings, doesn't it? Eventually.
I know, but I think it's hard to measure the productivity you gain.
Yeah. So we on that particular one, it was very easy because we could take the support calls that would usually go to a human, change in the level of support calls that now go through Vita, and that gives us a direct cost benefit. So there was a really good cost use case there. And then the speed in which people can self-diagnose, I suppose, and resolve has improved NPS. So taking those two sort of financial and people metrics is a good signal that we're improving our speed to get things done internally. There's lots of other things externally, though. We developed a new mobile app framework. So, funny enough, talking about the commodity versus...
Did you develop in-house?
Yeah, we did. I mean, whenever you say develop in-house, I always have to caveat it because, we're obviously using open source frameworks and libraries. And so, I was a developer and, no developers really develop their own code. They've either got it from Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow, or these days they've got it from
of course.
AI tool. So we did develop that in-house, but it was to fix a very, very old fragmented mobile framework. So now we've got that, we can release features really quick. So we can very rapidly A/B test new features for customers. We can improve performance significantly. So that's helped customers with their shopping journey from search and discovery to basket, checkout, fulfillment. I think the new store formats that we're trialing, the small store formats, that's all about convenience. It's all about...
all banners?
Yes. Mostly what I call the big box, or what we call the big box and trade. So that would be like the B&Q, Casto France, Casto Poland, and Screwfix. Screwfix has a small store format. They've also got a city format. But that's all about getting our products closer to the customer. I mean, that's all really, it's fundamental to what we do. It's either in a store or how can we quickly deliver products to customers at home. You take Screwfix Sprint, where the promise is to, in some places, get the product to your door in under 30 minutes. It's a phenomenal proposition that's not matched by anyone anywhere. And that's directly because we want to be able to get products to customers rapidly. There's a great use case that John Muir, the CEO, often talks about with Screwfix Sprint, which is when tradespeople come into London, they get their parking space in the morning when there's no cars, so they get their parking space up in front of the house and they start doing their work. If they find they need a new component or product during the day for their job, they don't want to leave and get in their car because they'll lose their parking space. So they use Screwfix Sprint to get the product to them very rapidly because the parking space is really, really important. So it's sort of use cases like that we think about.
So this is smaller formats of stores. It's like a fulfillment center for
these
guys that are working nearby. Okay,
yeah, spot on. Everything we do, we're always thinking about, what does the tradesperson's day look like, feel like? What does the customer want as they come in through the store? The first products they see. Everything is obviously it's all in service of sales, but hey, what gets you more sales? Really, really great customer experiences. And so that's the relentless focus we try to drive. I think we do pretty well.
I know, yeah. And I told about that in another interview, but I think it's nicer to say it again. I was reading some data from Capgemini, and apparently from 2023 to 2024, there was a jump in 50% of what people are willing to pay for quicker delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from 6% of the order value to 9% of the order value to get it in 10 minutes or less than 2 hours. So quick commerce is definitely something that, especially like in your work, right? Like you just need little something. Like you don't want to leave the parking spot.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many use cases like that. And I think, anecdotally, that's a great data point. But anecdotally, we find that, speed is important, but also communication. So tracking, just being able to track your product. Where is it? When am I going to get it? If it is delayed.
Predictability is key for someone that is working.
Yeah, completely. That is, almost as important. Doesn't matter if it's delayed, as long as I know it's delayed and I can plan myself around it, especially for trades.
And how do you train the culture of your teams to think like that, to be product-centric and also customer-centric?
It's a mix. I think, part of it is we've got some really good advocates for that way of thinking. A product-focused mindset is a relatively new sort of vocabulary, I suppose, but product-focused people have always existed, and they might just exist in a different form. There might be a program manager, they might be an analyst, but the fact that they're thinking about the customer, they're visiting stores, they're really close to the requirements, plus bringing outside-in expertise around what a digital product looks like. I think one of the simplest things to do, simple in concept, difficult in practice, is to get your teams that are building the products or services for customers as close to the customer or the proposition as possible. If you take B&Q and you've got the marketing and proposition team that have identified a really cool thing that customers are after, it's a new trend. If that requirement is developed and that goes to maybe an analyst, and then that analyst looks at it and then they pass that on to maybe a project manager, and then that project manager passes it to maybe a product owner, and the product owner passes it to an engineer, and they're outsourced, and maybe they sit somewhere else, and then they provide a quote, and that comes back down the chain all the way to the proposition. It's like, well, that's sort of what we asked for, but not quite. And then it goes all the way up.
And the communication gets lost in the way,
Communication
right?
gets lost. It takes forever. You normally have to pay for it. So that supply chain, if you like, optimizing it by removing the handoffs, removing the steps in between, and getting these people as close to these people as possible is fundamentally what a product mindset is. You have to understand on the ground in real time what is this use case? What am I building? Why am I building it? Who am I building it for? If you don't have that, then you'll fail, because other businesses do that, and they do it really well. Apple is the obvious one. Amazon did it very well in the early days. I think they've lost their way a little bit, but so that's really key. So just having people really close, and then by virtue of that proximity, you become product focused. You've got no choice, and that works across physical products to digital, in my mind.
And it's funny because you didn't come from retail, tech in retail. How did you get the? Like, I don't know if it will be the same thing for investment banking or the other areas. Like, how did you get this idea of customer experience?
I think it's a few things. I think, I think through study and reading, whether you read, Marty Kagan's SVPG, or there's frameworks out there which advocate for proximity to the customer. Even agile with a big A is fast iterations, developing quickly. I think in my career, where if I think about back when I was in investment banking as IT support, I worked directly with the traders. So I was on the trade floor.
Those are your customers.
They're my customers. Exactly right. And so then I worked in legal for a while, and my customers were the lawyers and the legal professionals. And then, academic publishing, my customers were the editors or the researchers. So I've been lucky, I suppose, that I've always been close to the end customer by accident, maybe, I'm not sure. Or maybe it's just the way the organizations were made up. And so it was very natural for me when I got to Kingfisher to look at these, huge lines and think, wow, that's doesn't feel right. There's something a little bit off there. And they were on that journey already, but we just
accelerated.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's always been natural, but I think for a lot of people, it's a bit alien.
And what has been, as a CTO in retail, what has been, I wouldn't say your biggest achievement, but your biggest lesson?
In retail, I think when I came in, I started espousing all sorts of technical concepts, and I was using a very technical vocabulary. And I remember my CEO sort of sat me down one day and said, I won't do the French accent because I can't do that, but he said, Chris, you've got to learn the vocabulary, the language of retail. You've got to learn, how we operate, how we converse and speak. And it wasn't really the language per se he was talking about. I mean, that was part of it. I think he was talking about how this business really works, the DNA of the business, the proximity of the store colleagues to the customers, the rawness of it. And I didn't do that. I came in with quite a lot of academic philosophy and grand ideas, and I had to very quickly adjust that within the first 6 months when I was there pitching my ideas to what's called the group executive, the leaders, the CEOs.
Getting the buy-in, you have to speak the retail language. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I just most of the time I just had very blank faces, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong and what I've done. So I had to very quickly adjust that. I had to think about, all right, how do I, not because they don't, these are very intelligent, very successful retailers, but you've got to talk technology in the way that makes sense to them and is useful to them. So I think that language assimilation was a big piece, what I hadn't experienced before, because investment banking, legal, it was, I guess there wasn't as much.
Consumer. It's a different...
Yeah, maybe that's it. It's hard to put my finger on it. I think there's almost more interest in tech here than anywhere else I've been. In other businesses, they tend to just let you get on with it. Whereas here, for better or worse, they want to know more about what you're doing and understand it, and it's a sort of two edges.
Yeah, well, I talk to many tech companies, and sometimes they have a technology that works for banking, healthcare, and retail, but they have one person to sell to all of them. And one of our critics is you have to have someone that talks retail to someone that is buying retail, because it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
There's another
point.
Customer journey. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think retail, more so than any other industry, I think you need to have, retailers respect retailers. I was an outsider. I still am in many ways.
Another thing that I love about Kingfisher, and I really do, it's your commitment to diversity. It feels like we are going backwards in terms of diversity. How important it is.
I mean, it drives me insane and confounds me that this is still an issue. I mean, I get it. Different cultures, different ways of, being brought up, living, socio-political backgrounds. The world is a complex place. For me, it's just a fundamental human characteristic to be inclusive of anyone, regardless of their race, background, sexuality, preference in socks. Who cares, right? You need to be inclusive. You need to include these people. It's a fundamental human characteristic. It's the right thing to do. If I look at other reasons, if you're not convinced it's the right thing to do, commercially you'll be more successful. If you are more diverse, why? Well, number one, if you are more diverse and inclusive in hiring, your talent pool increases massively. I mean, if you're only looking for male, technology talent, you're missing a massive, not just women, but a massive range of skills that you're not considering. So you're not going to get the best person every time. And then if you look at your customers, guess what? They're a diverse bunch. So if you're not representing your customers, both, I don't mean marketing, I mean when we're thinking about designing products, if your bias is to a particular facet of diversity, then you're going to alienate a a huge proportion of your customer base. So whenever I look at this, there's no good reason not to be inclusive. I just do not understand it.
What would be your message to someone that says they need more masculine energy in their company?
What does it even mean? This is the thing, right? What does that even mean? What do you stand for? If you're going to remove your DEI policy on the whim of a political movement or an event in a country somewhere around the world, if you're going to remove it so easily when you stood far behind it so steadfast over the years, what else are you just going to flip-flop on? What else are you not going to stand by? I think it's a sign of weakness. This whole masculine energy, if you're just going to fold so easily, I think that's weak. And I think it's
like how strong your values are, right?
Yeah,
if you can just change.
If you're going to change on a whim and you're not going to stand behind your convictions, and if you're not going to do it for this, when are you going to do it? We've seen countless times in history where this sort of thing leads to pretty poor outcomes. So yeah, I don't buy into it. I think it's very sad to see organizations and people reverse on that. I'm a dad, and I look at I've got 2 boys, but the winds change very rapidly. You just kind of think, what world are they growing up in? So yeah, my message would be, stand behind your convictions, don't be weak, and do the right thing.
And how do you enforce diversity in your team?
I wouldn't say we enforce it per se, but if we're going to hire a new role, we will insist upon a diverse slate of candidates. I still go to market and I'm always looking for the best candidate. But as I said, to get the best candidate, I need a broad set of candidates that are representative of society. So we always, with our recruitment partners, insist on that diverse slate of candidates. We will wait. Even if it's a really critical role, we will wait until we've got that, until we can make a decision. Within the team and within the broader tech group, we have a very clear statement on diversity and inclusivity. We live that every day. Personally, I get involved in Women in Tech. I'm the sponsor for neurodiversity. So I make a point of turning up and supporting those things, and that in turn helps, I think, people to feel safer to have conversations that are maybe difficult. We bring in great speakers outside in to talk about this. So I think just we continually remind ourselves and remind our teams that this is important, especially right now in the face of everything that's going on. And then we've got very practical things like, the hiring. And we also track diversity data where we can. So not all jurisdictions allow that, but in the UK, we track, women in tech, for example. And the upcoming pay transparency regulation will help with that as well.
Well, a big thank you from everyone, I guess. from
wow,
I hope I can say that from women at least. A big thank you for standing for your values and the company's values too, which is impressive.
Yeah, it's super important.
Chris, it was wonderful hearing from you. It was wonderful listening to everything you're doing in tech, and a big thank you from all of us.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.